Saturday, 14th of June, 2025 at 12:12 p.m. here in Snohomish, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our cosmic journey. It is your Dev and Design podcast with two super cold boys wearing their hoodies and sweatshirts, making the world's best astrology software. I am super cold boy designer Jake. He is engineer Trey. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Jake.
I think we might be getting a little bit sick. It's a very standard thing that every so often there's a cycle where we get sick. Feel free to look up there when I was sick during Thanksgiving one time.
Yeah, we're experiencing in the Pacific Northwest what they call January.
January, exactly. So we'll, we're going to get through it. We hope that you are staying warm as well. I mean, if you're in the South, you're probably facing 90-degree temperatures anyway.
Yeah, you're probably too warm.
You're probably too warm. So this week's episode is called First and Foremost. We will have a check-in from Trey. Trey has some chart stuff that he wants to show. I would like to show a little bit of the first run experience. There is a better header now with a logo. We had so many comments from you all last week. I don't know what was in the stars that had you all comment. There is actually a comment about the product, which is super weird. So we'll talk all about that. But before we get to that, of course, we always start with the check-in question. Mr. Henry, take us away.
When you are sick, what is your favorite thing to do for comfort?
I think when I'm sick is very much like when I am not sick. It's just more of a good thing or a bad thing, as it were. I usually just go and watch garbage videos, mostly cooking, sometimes Love is Blind or Love Island. I've been really getting into like watching the Karen Reed trial, just finished up now. Talk about a drama, a soap opera. So I'm into the soap operas, but like not the traditional kind of soap operas, but like whatever modern life has for a soap opera. So just more of that for me. That's my sick way of doing things. The other thing I do, I guess, when I'm sick is I weigh myself pretty extensively, because if I'm not eating, then I should be getting thinner, and that's always great. So we always have to look at the upside on this stuff.
The silver lining.
The silver lining, as it were.
It's a little bit similar to yours in that it's like something that I do anyway, but then I'll just sort of indulgently do it, which is play video games. But particularly playing video games like on a laptop, laying in bed, or laying on the couch. I was just a moment ago horizontal on this couch.
Yeah, for sure.
playing a video game. So yeah, I think that's definitely a go-to. When I was a kid, I think it was watching cartoons.
Oh yeah. What was your favorite? Let me go back to me. What was your favorite cartoon then? What was your thing that you like to watch?
I really loved Transformers when I was a kid, but going back and watching the Transformers that was airing when I was a kid, it is insane. It's like a fever dream. Like it's just like a bunch of random cuts from one thing to the next. There's no central narrative, hardly.
I can't figure out how we thought about this as kids. Like it. When I start watching that, I'm like, I cannot look. Things were much slower, I should say, in like the 80s and 90s. You know, just the way in which we had movies or media. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have this attention economy thing. But for some reason, Transformers was insane.
Yeah, like, it was ahead of its time.
By today's standards, it's insane.
From a pacing perspective.
Yeah,
just
nice. Well, love that.
Yeah.
Let's get into the demos. So if you remember last week, we had the Zodiac show up, and it could be resized. And we saw also the chart shrink down all the way down to what was a list view. We had promised since then that we would add more stuff to it. Mr. Henry has not disappointed. As you can see, more stuff that is here. We have houses. We have glyphs. The glyphs, is the grouping working on the glyphs yet? Or
No. It just so happens that nothing's close together right at the moment.
So luckily nothing's close together, so nothing is overlapping. Yeah. Otherwise, you would see very clearly that the grouping logic is not back in yet. But Mr. Henry, why don't you walk through anything else that happened here?
Yeah, I mean, this stuff mostly pretty straightforward. At least how it presents on the screen. Not straightforward to implement. Some of it was kind of a copy paste, but a lot of it wasn't. So yeah, this is really fantastic. Excellent progress this week.
Excellent,
I think.
Fantastic progress.
There was one thing I was going to show as well, which is, it's going to be super nerdy, is that I didn't realize that we could just arbitrarily specify actions to mutate the state of our application with the developer tools.
Welcome to the geeky side of astrology. We're mutating the state with our developer tools, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, and this came up because none of the click events, there's no interaction wired up for the points at this point. So I'm clicking on these right now. Nothing is happening.
What's the person to do?
Yeah, exactly. So what I can do is I can say, in the portion of our state that manages our panels, I can fire off this action called toggle right, which shows the right hand panel.
Amazing.
That's the same thing that happens like when you click on a point. It will internally fire this off.
One day it will do that. Today it does not. You have to type it in.
Yeah, you would never do this as a user.
Yeah,
but it's just kind of a cool thing that I thought was kind of neat.
This is what happens.
So I can also say set selected point in our chart state, and I have to tell it which point.
Got to give it the payload.
And then dispatch that, and there you go.
You change to Saturn. Oh, and Saturn's in fall right now.
Yeah.
So sad. So very good. Nice job on the chart there. We wanted to also show a little bit of the first run experience, and I'll demo this. And it actually goes in addition to the just the something I'm going to demo. We had a bunch of comments last week, and I want to address one of the comments because it's so good. It's almost like people are excited about this product, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
These are just YouTube comments on our video from last week. If you watched that video, great. Thank you for the 45 views that had happened. We appreciate that.
You're getting a little look into Jake Zukowski's life here with his suggestions on the right panel.
Oh yeah, it's really weird. And
Speaking of videos.
Können wir die Marke Commodore retten? Can we save the Commodore brand? Hey, sure, why not? We're going to go up to CJ Record here. Question: Mars is the domicile lord for Scorpio in traditional, but in modern it's Pluto. Will y'all have a setting switch to flip those three lords for Scorpio, for Capricorn, and for Aquarius? Great question, CJ Record. Thank you for that. And also, Mr. Laser, I know this is somebody I used to work with. Love the enchanted pencils idea, Jake. So if you haven't watched that video, up there. If you die, you can be made into pencils. It's kind of cool. It's hitting all of the good vibes here. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about was this idea of perspectives. So the way in which we're going to deal with settings in Cosmic is that there are certain settings that are really about like the user and how they view things, kind of what theme that they want, whether they want the chart rotated. These are things that are just like your personal preferences of things. Then there's a bunch of preferences that have to do with the type of tradition of astrology that you follow and the way in which you get aspects calculated. Essentially, there's a lot of overlap between tradition and aspects calculation, but there's not total parity and all of that stuff. And what we would say is when you sign up for Cosmic, you choose your default perspective and that your perspective travels with you. So if you create a chart, that perspective or your take on astrology, it goes with you with these moments and these charts that you send somewhere else. So if you want your domicile lord for Scorpio to be Pluto, you would say, I do a tradition that chooses the more modern versions of the domicile lords versus the traditional ones. And there's other things that could go in there, but like for the purposes of this question, this is really like the big thing that's in here. The reason I bring this up now is because I want to show you the first run experience. And in the first run experience, this is one of the things that you will be choosing. So what the first thing we'll do is have like a welcome screen for you. So you launch the software, you get the star field. Welcome to Cosmic Plumbing. Thanks for installing this early release. Hopefully you find more insights than bugs, but we know there's going to be too many bugs for you to handle. Thanks for finding them for us, kind of thing. All right, so you hit continue. The first thing you do is you choose a theme. And again, this is you personally. Do you want stellar dark? Do you want stellar light? Do you want it simple dark? Do you want it simple light? And we'll just show you what each of those are. We never do stellar light, so let's do stellar light today, okay? It looks pretty. Look at that like purple glow on that box. I love it. All right, this is where we get into the thing that I just talked about, Mr. Record. The set your default perspective. A perspective, and this is, we're going to test this language out right now, and I'll zoom this in here so we can read this together. A perspective is your personal settings for viewing charts, combining astrological approach, display preferences, calculation techniques, everything that represents your practice. This learn more will probably go into a explaining video a little bit more about like this thing I just talked about. There's your personal settings. There's stuff about the way you practice astrology, and you want to make sure that the way you practice astrology goes with you with your charts. Mm-hmm. Right now, the perspectives are Hellenistic, Renaissance, and modern, but you can imagine that this instead will say something to the effect of choose your astrological tradition. That would be one of these. Choose the way in which you want aspects to be calculated. And then what we would have is, here is a system perspective that best matches for you. And then eventually what you can do is you can edit that perspective to make it your own. But like for the purposes of first run experience, you seem more like a modern dude than Hellenistic. So we say modern, hit next. Then we say default location. This is the location when you want to cast a new chart. Well, we're near Lake Stevens, Washington. So we're going to use that one. And then we say create your birth moment, because we want you to get right into the software. So we will use your default location. Here's your birth time location, or your time zone and all that. You've seen this before. I was born in, wait a second, what was this town? Oh, Libertad. That's not what I saw, by the way. I was like, I thought that said something very rude. January 1st, 1979, and I was born at 2045 CST. And I hit finish, and it's not wired up, but you could imagine at this point, you would go to a chart view. And that's really what the first run experience is going to be. I mean, I was zoomed way in on it, but like, it's a little bit more, I'll say like, there isn't a lot going on the sides. Maybe that's okay. It's okay to have something simple. For some reason, I always feel like we have to load up screens with stuff, but maybe we have to be so loaded up with stuff. Anyways, hopefully that helps answer a little bit about perspectives. More to come. We had a whole video on perspectives up there. You don't have to watch it. We'll talk about it again later, I'm sure. But if you want to, it's up there.
But one thing that we did decide as a part of this latest round of perspective work is that we are going to call them perspectives for the user.
I think so.
Yeah, that's our current approach.
Yeah.
And we believe that this is a good thing to do because both preferences and settings as words come with a lot of baggage that isn't necessarily what we're doing here. The portability of these things, as Jake was saying, tied to a specific chart or a specific moment, and being able to then share those things or grab somebody's perspective off the shelf and use it as your own and things like that. That's not really preferences. That's not really
a point
settings.
Of view. And I wouldn't say point of view. So here, I can show you, Trey and I have been thinking a lot about this. And when we think about things, we design them in terms of objects, relationships, calls to action, and attributes. So an object that we have in the system is called, internally, it was called perspective. And we said, there might be, you can see here, these other labels. These are other things that we were thinking about calling this thing, or that other people have called this thing: a setting, a preference, an option, a view option, a view. And we had played around with all of these words. None of them make as much sense or capture the essence of what we had talked about, where it is not only the way in which you designate your preferences, either temporary or permanent, but also the calculation methods, the display of things, the way in which you believe that certain attributes should be attributed. So this is idea that Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio versus Mars. Everything like that.
And for those who might have been looking at the initial first run experience and been like, well, I do Hellenistic, but I do like to see the invisible outer planets.
Oh yeah,
like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We'll have that as well.
Yeah,
and you'll also, like Jake said, you'll also be able to edit these perspectives, have multiple of them, so you can use one perspective in one case, a different perspective in a different case.
Let me go back to that step 4. This screen here is right now probably overly simplistic because we're saying perspective is Hellenistic. What we will probably ask on this screen is certainly astrological tradition, certainly aspect calculation type. But Trey makes a good point here, which is there might be other things that are opinionated in astrology that you might want to put first for your default so that we can train and teach this concept fully and completely. We might not capture everything that you care about in a perspective, and that's where you would go and make it your own. That was that thing that I talked about. We're still playing with this. This is probably the hardest part of the software conceptually to think about because it's very different than how traditional astrology software or really like traditional software works, because there's a way that you can be super opinionated, but you lock somebody into a methodology, or there's a way that you can be everything for everybody. We're trying to find a middle ground because right now, astrology software is either you have to do it this one way, or you can do it any way you would like, and it's super confusing to use. That's essentially what we're trying to square here.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid the situation where somebody like Chris Brennan has to share a zip file with 14 files in it with instructions of where you have to place those files exactly on the file system in order to get Chris Brennan's view.
And let's not even get into the idea that like a native's data is bad and then that bad data is kind of passed propagated from one astrologer to another. Once we do natives, that will all be fixed as well, because that shall not stand what has happened there. I was so saddened by that idea. I'm like, is this word 98? Like, why are we passing around files like this? This doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
Anyways, cool. Mr. Henry, back to you. Do you want to show off the very small little thing that we also did in the header bar?
Yeah. It's like my favorite thing from this week.
So wait. Before you do that, I'm gonna go to your screen solo. So you might remember that there was a whole thing up there. It's still kind of messed up on the
save status needs some help.
That's not fixed yet, but you will see now there's a little icon in the upper left. That is where you go to view all charts. Now, when you highlight that, it does a little tilt, and it tilts backwards, as in it's like go back to all charts.
I love it so much.
I love it too.
That's just really
I did
nice.
that this morning. I woke up at 6 a.m. and I fixed all of that.
That's so cool. I really enjoy it.
The other thing is that now the title highlights, so it looks like it's editable.
Yeah, it just looks a little bit better. I was thinking that we could even do like a little pin icon in there or something, but I think
no.
It's it feels like it's interactable now.
Yeah. It looks good. Do you want to show? Can you easily show it in light or anything like that, or is that going to be too hard?
Yeah, I'm going to kick that over to you to fix later.
Oh, great.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. And also, there's a little bit, so the shadow, I don't know if you can see this. You probably can't see this super well. The shadow on the title below it, before you click it, the shadow below is now much more distinct as well. So it pops up a little bit. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super subtle.
It's a subtle thing.
Boop, 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 boop,
excellent.
Boop, boop.
Well, I love it. Thank
I love it too.
So much. And our balances are off on our mics, and so I'm holding my mic up to my mouth because otherwise Mr. Henry's too loud. But that's my fault because I didn't balance. No, I didn't balance things ahead of that time. What should the good viewer do with their day, Mr. Henry?
Indulge in a thing that you love doing, even if you're not sick.
Even if you're not sick. If you are sick, I'm sorry that you are feeling sick. Why don't you have some bone broth? I made some upstairs. It's delicious.
So
otherwise, go play a game. Go enjoy nature. Go pet a dog. I told you to pet a dog last week. Didn't you do that?
I think we've told them to pet a dog like 10 times.
Lots of times. Be well, take care, have yourself a wonderful weekend and week, whatever day you watch this video. We hope it's a good one. We will see you again next week. We love you very much. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.